Okay. Hey team, welcome to Benchmarked. Thank you for joining us today. Coach Mess here along with Coach LaRock. We are excited to have a very special guest with us today. One that I'm going to try to get through this introduction with some sort of composure, as I'm so excited for her. She's a very special athlete who has done wonderful things at every stage of her career. She is a two-time World Women's U18 silver medalist. She has been a first-team all-conference in the WCHA 3 times. She holds the single-season scoring record for the Ohio State women's hockey team. She's a second-team All-American. She just recently won gold at the IIHF World Championships. And to top it all off, she has now been selected just recently to the 2022 Olympic team roster. Not to mention, she has a degree in health science and has interned at the OSU Neurological Center. She's also one of the best people I know on this planet. I am speaking of none other than Emma Maltais. Emma, thanks so much for joining us today. It's amazing to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
The Olympics. Tell me what your reaction was when you found out that you were being selected to go to Beijing.
Yeah. So honestly, we were going home for Christmas, and when we are going to find out where we're going to find out got a little bit delayed. So we found out on December 23rd, which is a nice Christmas present if you make it. But if not, obviously that's real tough. So, I mean, we were all prepared for it. I think both ways. I knew I was a bubble player, and I think that just came with really high anxiety. I mean, obviously I knew I wanted to be on the team. We trained so hard all year, and it came down to what the team needed at that point. And luckily I fit into that mold. And that day was crazy. My mom actually went to the gym. She didn't want to be in the house. She was like, I don't want to be near you. So she knew she would add to my nervousness. So I actually went to go get COVID tested in the morning, and I came back and I was just pacing the house. I was the last one to find out, or second last in the roster. So I think I found out around like 11:40. So like 11:25, I came back from COVID testing, and I just paced around my house for 15 minutes, texted my best friends, like, can you just send me something to look at? Anything? They're like, yeah. And then I logged onto the call, and they were all straight faced. It was the whole coaching staff and the general manager. And I was like, oh no, I for sure have gotten cut. And then they're like, congratulations. I just literally jumped out of my seat and ran around my room. Like I didn't even have time to think about my reaction. So, and then they said really nice words, but I don't remember. I tried to remember all of it, but I don't know if I remembered.
Was the call recorded? Did they record the call?
I don't think so.
Wow. So it's been a long process. You got centralized this year. Can you explain a little bit what the process of centralization is and what that means for you?
Yeah. So this centralization has been my goal now for the last 3 years. Everybody knows when it's going to come. And I hadn't had tons of experience with the senior program, but I had participated in like one tournament, and I had been to the camps with the senior team. So I thought it could have gone either way, whether I was centralized or not. And then I had one really good camp in Halifax, and that was before they were selecting what was supposed to be the Worlds team at that time, but obviously Worlds got canceled. But they used that to pick the centralization roster. So they picked 29 players, and you all move to Calgary and you train every day. And essentially it's bringing the team together, making a really strong core. And they play exhibition games a lot against the US in those rivalry series, but also against, we started playing junior A boys teams, junior A boys teams. And then through that, at the end of December, they select the team. So that's kind of it was a little bit different this time around because we had Worlds at the beginning, and I was lucky to be on that roster. So that was a very strong start for us, winning Worlds. And then, the rest of the process was kind of
You had a great world championships. We watched games on TSN and online. You played excellent. So then you do so many different things. I've always seen you as like a Swiss Army knife. You could do all kinds of different things. You're that player that you can put on any position other than defense. Because do you remember?
Yeah.
So I love sharing stories. Do you want to tell the story? You tell
Oh,
the
no,
story
you
about.
thought you've heard my voice enough already. You thought.
I want to say it's York. We're playing at York University, and we're in a league in a division in a tournament that we probably shouldn't have been in. The team wasn't very good, so we were just doing some fun stuff. And you asked me to try to play defense, and I've seen you do so many things well and amazing things. Probably one of the best athletes I've ever coached. And I remember Scott Mifsud was coaching with me, and you can't skate backwards. You had this little wiggle, like no wonder you can't break dance. You had this little wiggle going on, and we're like, what is going on here? And we had a little laugh about it. And then now obviously you're on the Olympic team, so your backward skating has improved tremendously, but I'll never forget that. That was a
Honestly, Mass, like it really hasn't. Like I was at practice in last year at OSU, and we had to do this drill where the forwards had to play defense against, like the defense were going forwards and the forward were playing defense. It was a one-on-one. I got burned every time. Every time. Like I'm not even kidding.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I shouldn't reveal your weakness there. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that.
Okay, I don't think I skate backwards.
Okay, fantastic. So, your journey, you've been playing for a long time, and obviously you've excelled at all the levels that you've played at. And I know you had great experience in Oakville, and then you went off to Ohio State, and you had lots of great experiences. Tell me, and I know your coach Brady in Oakville, she was a big influence on you, and then Muzz at Ohio State was a big. What is it that you like to see out of coaches? What is it that you find that works really, really well? What might not work well, and what is it that if you had to be a coach, if you had to be a leader, what would you draw from that, and how would you approach it?
Yeah, like you mentioned, Brady and Muzz have been two really key people in my hockey career and in my life. And I think that's the key point of it, is they are so involved. They're always there, willing to talk to me whenever I need to talk. They're constantly reaching out. It's like the relationship does go both ways though. Like I really respected the way that they coached me in high school and through university. So I wanted to keep that relationship too. But I think when you see that in an athlete, I think it's important that like they're so consistent about it and so genuine that I feel like I can come to them with anything. In a coaching way, I would say just like recognizing the strengths of your athlete and like throwing tidbits in that they would never even think of. Like I remember Brady saw that I wouldn't consider myself the most skilled player in the world. I would never consider myself super skilled, or even like I think what separates me is like the way I can see the game and play the game fast. And I think she saw that in me. She saw I could see the game well. So she taught me, okay, when you're coming down on the wing, like watch the defense's feet. When you do this, watch how they react with their feet. So like she saw that in me, and then she gave me a tidbit that I took even farther for myself. So I think just like really investing in your athletes and like knowing them is like the most key thing for me. For example, Muzz taught me that, Emma, you don't need to pass on every single 2-on-1. So something that stuck with me from her is that she was a completely different player than me. She was goal scorer, nonstop, shooting, always shooting. And she saw in me like someone who doesn't really like to shoot the puck. So I really gained a lot of offensive creativity from her. But again, she really responded and could take a lot of information in from me so she could know how to coach me. So I think honestly listening and like observing what your athlete is, and then in the end of the day, like putting that effort to stay in contact with them.
I would say that you're very skilled. And it's and in a lot of ways, and I get it, you're being very humble, but there's so many great things that you do. You do have amazing vision. You're also that type of player that I recognized was, it didn't take me long when you were playing high school hockey for me, was you would be in one spot and then all of a sudden it's just like, where did she go? And she was over here, and you're very tough to defend against. And the other thing that I always took away, and why I appreciate you so much, is you were a pass first, shoot second person, but when you wanted for other people to score, you celebrated more when your friends scored and your teammates scored than when you scored. I'll never forget, like, you would score like, yeah, okay, that's great. But when somebody else scored, man, it was like the world lit up. And I thought that was cool. That's being a good teammate. So kudos to you. I'm sure along the way, people have recognized that is an amazing thing that you bring to a team, is being a good teammate. So good for you.
Well, honestly, Mess, I'll share a story with you. That was implemented in me. Well, I always thought in my head, like, I want to be the best. I want to be the best at, like, I was such a perfectionist at such a young age. And I don't know if I for sure told you this story, but my second year U18, I caught myself I didn't catch myself, like someone called me out for not necessarily being the best teammate in like the tryout situation for Hockey Canada. Like, I was going up against girls my own age and they had different skills than me. They could toe drag around people, but I wasn't celebrating for them as much as I should have. So I got called out for it. And I will never forget the pivotal moment that was for me, because I recognized, like, that really matters. And that stuck with me so much. And that's literally the reason I'm on this team. It is ingrained in me. And I think a big part of why I built such great connections at Ohio State and why I think I can be a leader. I think being humble and being a great teammate is the ultimate thing a leader or someone in the position where they are getting more ice time can bring. So I think, like, that pivotal moment in my career has, like, shifted a lot of it.
And can you walk us through that situation? I'm super curious how that played out.
Yeah.
So in your eyes, you're doing your thing. You just weren't celebrating, I guess, other people's successes as much as others would have liked you to. So what was the situation? What was the conversation like?
Yeah. So after Hockey Canada camps, they send reviews, and on my review, I remember opening it, and there's a column that, like, there's all your columns for, like, skills, defensive zone, offensive zone, like, it goes down and it reviews every single part of your game. And the last one is, like, it's basically your column of being a good teammate. And I remember reading it, like, I honestly tried this moment, like, I read it and my stomach was just like, that's not me. Like, that's not who I want to be. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and I was like, okay, that is me right now. Like, that's what I'm portraying. Like, I was, oh, like, this player shouldn't make it over this player because, like, they are shoot first mentality, and like, it's better to be you know what I mean? Like, I was just placing so much criticism on other players on the way they played, when it was like, well, like, how are you playing? Why aren't you trying to help them versus, you know? So when I read that about myself, it said, like, you are not being a good teammate the way you treat other people, and that's really going to affect the team, and we need to have a conversation about that. And I had to call the general manager of Hockey Canada at the time and talk about my attitude. And for those who know me, like, my attitude, I put so much value. That's how I was raised. I put so much value into my attitude. And I remember having to have that conversation about my attitude. I'm like, what am I doing right now? Like, wow, like, this is so, as a young kid, like, having to have that conversation, and what I thought of myself before versus what I thought of myself after, I was like, I really had to make changes in how I acted.
Talk about self-growth, and good for you for being aware and accepting that. Some people would have just folded it and be like, no, they're wrong, I'm not like that. But you took that and seized that moment to be reflective and make changes. And obviously look where you are now. And that's amazing. And we talk about a lot of things. That's a controllable, right? You can control, I know I've told you before, you control the controllable, right? So that's an amazing response, especially as an 18-year-old. Talk about a mature and beyond your years wise decision there.
Why did you just stick to the well, it's everybody, that's their problem, that's not my problem? Like, you could have easily went that way, and I don't think anybody would have criticized you for it. You might not be where you are today, but what made you realize hey, this is that punch in the face moment, and they're right, instead of saying back, like you said before, defensively, no, that's not me, that's what, something happened, what clicked?
Yeah. And I think it's just hearing the general manager's concern about my career because of that. It wasn't I always thought it was going to be something like my shot wasn't good enough and my skating wasn't ideal, and it was my attitude. And I think in that moment I was so shocked, and seeing my parents' reaction I think was the worst, because I'm they were really, Emma, seriously, and I was I think seeing their reaction was what really forced me to look inward, because I was I didn't want to disappoint them, and I was that is probably the only thing I could do to disappoint them, because my parents were so supportive when it came to hockey, and if I messed up on a shift they wouldn't have been mad, but that's a different story, obviously.
That's a controllable. It's a controllable, right? So that's amazing. Now let's talk a little bit about Emma, not the hockey player, and let's talk a little bit about this health science and the neurology stuff. What steered your passion or your interest in that stuff?
Yeah, so Ohio State, I love Ohio State. I committed at such a young age, and I'm so lucky that I committed there at that age. I can't even begin to explain the gratitude I have for that decision. But so they give so many opportunities to their athletes for life after hockey. And I was so hockey going into the NCAA, and I had these opportunities to do internships in the summer at the hospital at Ohio State, where I could shadow different professions. And I shadowed PT, physical therapy, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it in a hospital setting, and I didn't expect to love it in a hospital setting. I always thought I'd work in sports. So after I was so close to the patients and really seeing people in traumatic situations, after motorcycle accidents, and I'm watching the PT help them learn how to walk again. And I saw so much value in something other than, how I did in a game. And I think I hadn't seen that before. I felt that same, oh, wow, I want to do that, as I did about hockey. And I think that excited me so much that I put a lot into finding other internships, seeing what I could do with that. And I think that was really important for me, because that added balance in my life. And that's exactly what I needed at that time.
How do you think the skills and the experiences that you've had as an athlete help you in those situations, in your academic situation and your future profession related to that stuff? How do you merge the two, I guess, is what I'm looking for? What brings those together?
Oh, it's so correlated. It's crazy. The act of working in a group and having to lead unique characters in diverse situations is so it's in every job. And I don't think I really realized that until I actually talked to this one doctor one day, and she was talking to me about her job. She was a PhD, and she was doing research on I think it was prosthetic legs, and she was doing research on it. And she's how many people I talk to in the healthcare system that's not just my coworker? I go and talk to the OT and the PT in one day to see how my research is going to affect them. And she's it's such a team mentality that we're looking for people who can work in those teams every single day.
Amazing. That's just all the things that we say why sports are great for people, because you just learn how to work with different people, and not everybody on your team they're not all going to be best friends, but you still got to work towards the same goal, right?
Yeah. And I think like communication is like the biggest thing that's helped me, because I had to, especially with my coach at Ohio State, like I felt I had the responsibility to stand up or speak for my teammates. And I have just seen myself become so much more comfortable talking to people who are like higher up than me, and having to like go to them and be like, listen, like, this is how I feel. What do you think about this? Or writing an email, or like having not the balls, but having the balls to like really speak up and
Advocate for yourself and other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Now, if you could time travel, I asked everybody this. We're going to put you, and you're young. You're our youngest interviewee here. If you could travel back in time, what advice would you give yourself as a young athlete coming up, like say the 16, 18-year-old you?
16, 18, I'd be like right before Ohio State.
Yeah. So like grade 11, grade 12-ish.
Oh, in high school, like I would just tell myself like, be you, like, listen, like, be you. I think like in high school, I was so concerned, especially now with all the social media and all that nonsense. I think I was just so concerned of what other people thought of me. And if I could just tell them like, listen, like you're going to go to a place where like you can do your thing and everything's going to be okay. Like stop freaking out about things that don't matter. All the things my mom told me, basically.
I remember, I think we went out for coffee, and I can't remember if it was at the end of your grade 11 year or somewhere in grade 12. And I think we talked about the idea is you needed to get to a place where more people were like you, right? Because you were unique in a lot of the things that you were accomplishing in high school. And so not a lot of people could necessarily relate at that level. So you went to a place and it was just like your world, everybody, like there are people that train all the time and people that have the same goals as I do and all that stuff. So it just kind of like opened you up a little bit, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And like, honestly, it didn't, I still joke. I joke with you. Like, I think I have some weird, like, I don't know. I love to train. I love it. And I don't know if that's just rare or that's just, but I eat that stuff up. I think it's not even about the people. It's about like the opportunity and being okay to take those opportunities. Like, for example, at Ohio State this summer, my strength coach at Ohio State is exceptional, always feeding me like Chris, I want to do this. Okay, Emma, let's do that. Like just pushing me to the next all the time. And to have people like that, like the yes people, like, yes, Emma, yes. So it's not even people who are willing to do it with you. Like I ran so many 300-yard shuttles this summer by myself just to prepare for, because I had a different mindset going into different camp than my teammates at Ohio State. But I was so okay with that there because I think I've learned like, okay, I have this opportunity. I can train for this, even though I'm by myself doing it. I have so much support in that like at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. And that's okay. So, and like, if other people don't want to do that, like, that's fine too. But I think that's just, I've just become more comfortable in what I want to do.
Amazing. Pretty cool.
You are a reflection of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Who are those 5 people?
5 people I hang out the most. So my parents, does that count? Or is it like friends?
Anything you want, like, because we say, and it's legit, it's the truth, you are a reflection of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So we try and tell sometimes younger athletes, watch who you hang out with. And like Coach Mess was talking about, when you went to Ohio State, you got to be you got to be surrounded with more like-minded people. As much as you like training on your own, those types of things, you still had the supporting cast around you. And you look to your left, to your right, she's working as hard, she's grinding it out. Also, she's studying like crazy, she's juggling everything like you are. Where in a high school setting, you look to your left, you look to your right, you're trying to like, who else is like me sometimes? And you feel like you're on the moon by yourself. It was a different situation, I'm assuming, at Ohio State. but who are those 5 people that kind of helped, Emma Maltais stay Emma?
Yeah, I have a really good friend. Like, my whole team at Ohio State is so amazing. The 5 people that I would put my finger on, Peyton Levis is my best friend at Ohio State. She's a class younger than me, and someone like that, like, I'll just use her and Liz Sheppers as an example. Liz is my co-captain. She's was my co-captain at Ohio State. She's the captain right now. She's in my major. She wants to be a physical therapist as well. She was my roommate. So those 2 in particular were always, like, Liz was always she's so smart. So she didn't really have to study as much as me, but she was always like so driven to do so well in everything. And I just like I wanted to keep up with her so bad. So, and both of them through their hockey career, like, they started maybe on like the 3rd line at Ohio State and like really worked so hard to get up the lineup. And now they're both on the first line together. And I think like those are 2 of my best friends, and they were such workhorses. They stayed there every summer. They trained, they got jobs. They didn't have full ride scholarships from the beginning. They like earned to get more money. And I think like those were the people I surround myself with because they were so hardworking and wanted it so bad.
Wow. That's cool. That helps, right? When you get 5 amazing people surrounding you, that's so good. So important. Now, I'm sure everybody wants us to get to the meat and potatoes. Beijing 2022. How are you preparing yourself for this? Like, have you envisioned yourself walking into the Olympic Stadium for the opening ceremonies? Like, talk to us a little bit about now. And you got amazing leadership on this Olympic team. Some vets who've been to, I think, a couple of them going to their 3rd Olympics, maybe
4th. 2 are going to 4th.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is unreal. So fill us in on that. How are the veterans working? There's a lot of you that it's your first Olympics. You got some very young talent. I know yourself and Serfilia, they're very, young. Fill us in on what's going through your mind right now. You're 5 weeks out, 4 weeks out?
Yeah. So right now we're in a hotel, and we are basically just isolating as much as we can from each other ish. Like, we'll go to practice, we wear a mask all the day at the rink, and we're kind of getting down to the nitty gritty more now, like doing more video on specific things, getting those lines finalized, working a lot of game situations. So I'm usually at the rink from like 9 to 4 or 5, and then so like a job, and then come back. They've been doing a lot of team activities. Like, I was just telling these 2 guys, we were doing a breakdancing class, which is like so, and then like dinner.
You're lucky this isn't a video podcast, because we'd be having you do some breakdancing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, people have been asking me that, like, how do you feel? I'm like, honestly, it has not hit me yet. I don't think it's gonna hit me until I'm there. I really don't. I honestly.
We had Stubby Clapp, Coach Mess asked Stubby Clapp in one of our interviews, and he's an Olympic athlete. And he told us to tell you to step back and enjoy it. That was because Mark asked, what would you tell Emma? She's going to her first Olympics. And that's basically his piece of, I'm sure people will give you 50 different pieces of advice, but from an Olympic athlete to you was basically step back and enjoy it.
Yeah. And I'm for sure going to try and do that. I think honestly, like the whole COVID thing, it might help me a bit to do that, because I don't know, there's a little bit, like a little less fans, like, a little bit less. I mean, it's not less pressure, but
distractions. It's distraction control, right?
Yeah. So maybe
that's pretty cool.
But yeah, I mean, I want to touch on, like you said, those older girls, like, I think I remember telling you in Pittsburgh when I had my first senior camp, like I sat beside Poulin in the locker room, and I actually did not say a word. Like, I actually did not say a word. Like, they are so cool. And when I came to centralization, they allowed me to be me. Like I have my personality can be a lot at some points. And I knew that like, I'm going to walk slowly into being me, because sometimes the young kid that's like loud and like a little can be annoying. So, but they allowed me to be me. And honestly, like I would consider Pooh one of my best friends now. So she is an exceptional leader, like exceptional, but also like just knows how to get the best out of everybody she works with. So I can't say enough great things about all these girls, like all of them. And they're all so humble, so hardworking. And I am really happy there are a lot of young kids, but honestly, like I don't even really get that vibe that it's any different for us than it is for them, which is, I think in my eyes, pretty special.
Wow. That is pretty cool. Just to be in that environment, it just got to be something, like you say, going to the rink every day, like a job, 9 to 5 and working. And we had a previous show, we were talking about preparation, where we see on TV, we see the game, we watch, and I'll be like, hey, there's Emma, blah, blah, blah. And there's so much that goes on before that first step onto the ice, the national anthem and the puck drop. A lot of people might not realize that, right? It's an intense, and there's a lot of work, the lifting, the nutrition. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about this. Like now that you're a superhero now, I just saw that in social media. So I saw that you and have you had a chance to meet those other athletes? So you are now in a partnership with Cherry Bomb, and tell us a little bit about that and your superhero status.
Yeah, so I was reached out by Nate, who is like working on an app to help recruit athletes to different brands. And Cherry Bomb is an awesome like start for me, I think, with all that stuff, because their vision was more to do like a donation based with products, so if you donate $50, then you get $50 worth of Cherry Bomb back. And basically all your money goes towards our training and helping us prepare for the Olympics and those kind of things. And it's fun because I'm with Jenner. Brianne Jenner is also in that. So we get to make videos together. I'm more tech savvy with that stuff, but she knows more about kind of the logistical side of it. So I think that's a really good start for me. It's been a lot of fun, actually. I've enjoyed that, but yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, have you put any thought, and it's a tough question to ask you, but what about after the Olympics? What happens then? What's the game plan?
I'm going to relax for like a little bit. And then, but you know me, I am going to go back to Ohio State for my 5th year, COVID year. And I plan on training there in the summer, because if I'm going to be a leader there, I want to make sure I get to know those 2 classes that I didn't get to know this year, and reconnect with my teammates. So that's my plan moving forward. But Worlds is in August. So there is some schedule. Honestly, a lot of that is up in the air, but that's kind of my tentative plan.
Wow. Emma, has it been worth it? All this work to this point, has it been worth it?
Yeah, it's worth it. But I will say it was a very big adjustment for me mentally. Physically, I've been fine. I find the training load to be manageable. I can do it that. I think just mentally, not being used to being in the role I am at this level. And I think like I'm very proud of myself with how I've adjusted to it, because I think it's tough to go from someone who plays 30 minutes a night at Ohio State to playing maybe 4 minutes, like, it's very different. But I have really seen the impact I can have off the ice. And that's really helped me as an individual grow, honestly. Like I think I've grown a lot this year just through that. And that mental battle more than really anything.
So I'm just gonna use the numbers you gave. Not that they're like set in stone or anything, but I'm going to use 30 and 4. So an athlete who's used to the 30 minutes of ice time or tons of playing time to 4, what have you learned, or what do you think you're learning in those 26 minutes you're not playing? I'm just playing on numbers here, but I think you get where I'm going with this. So what do you think you've learned or you're learning in those 26 minutes?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think that I am just so grateful for when I go on the ice that the 26 minutes in between, I'm so like trying to stay in the game and focus on other people's successes, because it's like,
I love it.
that's how I can stay in it and be ready for when I'm up. Do you know what I mean? And
Magic.
that's the biggest thing I've learned is if you're in the game, if you're cheering other people on, that's going to keep you in it. And I like to cheer on my teammates. They've been great with me. So
Emma, rewind to when you're 18 and you got the GM conversation about your attitude, and you just described the 26 minutes, how you're more concerned about being a better teammate. And you didn't do it. I don't think it happened for a tongue lash, and it happened organically, but it's just, within this 40, 50 minutes we've been together, I've already got to see your mental growth and your maturation as a young woman, basically, in that process. And I don't even know you, but this has just been awesome to see a person really develop in front of me in 51 minutes. So good job.
Awesome. So I want to ask, because you were talking about how Poulin is such an amazing leader. I'm imagining, like, first, it's got to be hard for her, because I would say a vast majority of the athletes on this team are probably leaders from their colleges or whatever they're doing. People have to play roles, right? Like, she's wearing the C, but you've worn a letter at Ohio State, and I know a lot of the girls coming in that are there have worn letters at different levels. How do you guys manage that locker room? Is there does there ever become like a struggle, or is it like people just accept it and we work on this together?
our leadership group is so respected, and they do so much away from the game that we know about, that I think they've earned that respect so much. And each of them has a different leadership style. And I think that each player knows who they would go to in certain situations. And I think that's the special part about it. Like, for example, in Worlds, like this story's, like when people ask me how Pooh is as a leader, I use this story. We were playing a weaker team and we were tied. I believe it was Russia, not a weaker team, but it wasn't necessarily like we needed to score, because it was like, sometimes when those teams like hang around, they can really like bite. It can really bite you. And it was like at the end of the first period, and I had like a 3-on-1, and I fanned on the pass at like the blue line, and it was like the other team took it and went back down the other way. And I was like, hadn't really had a big chance yet. It was one of my first games, and I really wanted to like get a point or like contribute in that way, in that moment. And it would have been like a big goal. And I remember like sitting down on the bench after and being like, what did I just do? I just fanned on a pass on a 3-on-1. Like, seriously, how many times have I practiced that in practice recently? But the nerves just got to me. And I sat down on the bench, and Pooh turned around and she looked at me and she said, "Hey, be a goldfish." And I was like, "Okay, goldfish, goldfish, goldfish." And I like snapped right out of it. So goldfish is from the show Ted Lasso. He uses be a goldfish because goldfish has a 10-second memory. So when we had been talking about that show, and she knows I watched that show. So she had watched that show, and then she used that in that moment because she knew that I would respond to that. And then I sat her in the locker room, and she asked me, it was probably like 10 minutes later, she goes, "Are you still thinking about that?" I go, "Yes." She goes, "Okay, like think about it for like 2 more minutes." So it's like, we all know each other, and like, we're all perfectionists. It's like, she can tell like, oh, that's bugging her. And she's like, "Okay, I'll give you 2 more minutes." But then like, seriously, like,
Wow. What's really impressive is you hear now as they're talking about her, like you see a lot of people talk about leaders and great leaders and leadership. you're hearing it from other sports. You're hearing it from TSN, and they're talking about how great she is as a leader. And that's amazing for her. It's amazing for the women's game. It's amazing overall to have this person being recognized outside of just your team. Other people are taking notice of that, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, 100%. I think the women's game in general, like I was so surprised with the attention we got at Worlds, like that. It's amazing. And I'm really hoping it keeps growing.
That's pretty cool.
And we talk about for a variety of different sports, we're talking about hockey now as an example, but when you leave high school athletics and you're going to post-secondary athletics, like, baseball is a little bit more thing is, everyone was the best pitcher in their high school team. Everyone was the best this, everyone was the best. So when you get to post-secondary, hockey, football, basketball, track, volleyball, everyone's there for a reason. You're like, there's only 4% of secondary school athletes who move on to play post-secondary athletes. So you're already a percentage, but I guess, pooling is not that she's an exception to it, but everyone finds their role in their niche once you get to that point. But I'm sure as your freshman year, how was your freshman year, sophomore year at Ohio State? Like, who are the people, you don't have to say names or anything like that, but like, who are those people at that time? Because you're going to Ohio State, which is a successful women's hockey program. How did that all come about and play like to where you got to wear a letter at some point?
Yeah. And I actually, I didn't realize the impact my leaders at Ohio State, my freshman and sophomore year, had on me until I had to lead the team. And I wish I saw it more in the moment. I really do. I mean, I did follow them. They were great leaders, but I think I really saw the impact they had on me after I had to lead, because I was like, wow, this is tough. Like, this is freaking tough. Like, I don't think people realize how hard it is to be a leader, and it's more than just being a good player. And coming into Ohio State, like, I was lucky because the program was growing and I was seen as a player that could play high level minutes and on the first or second line early in my career. So I was lucky in that sense to come in and kind of have that role right away. It wasn't until I was with the national team where I saw that lower role, and I actually texted, because I had a captain my sophomore and junior year, and she was on the fourth line and she didn't play a lot, and she led our Ohio State team beautifully, without a doubt, one of the best leaders I've ever had. And she barely really played. And I remember texting her when I got to Worlds, and I just texted her, I said, thank you, because I didn't realize like how tough that would have been to sit on the bench, watch the games, but lead the team. And she did it so beautifully. I didn't even see a difference in it. And so her name's Olivia Soares. And I remember I would come to the bench like huffing and puffing after a PK, and she would just like look down at me and be like, you got this, like, keep going. And like in the moment, I'm like, oh, that's so, like, thank you. But like now looking back, I'm like, she had been sitting on the bench watching that PK. I'm like dying. She's like taking her energy out of like what she's focusing on is me. So it's like exactly what you're saying. But yeah.
Wow. That's
she prepped you for those 26 minutes.
Exactly.
When you think about it, that's unreal.
Wow. And the growth continues. Wow. You know what? And these are all things that are going to continue to help you grow as you're not done. Like you're still not done, right? Like this is going to be an amazing thing for everyone to watch and finally see what we've all been seeing here locally for the last 16 years about you playing hockey and athletics here. So this is really exciting for a lot of us around here. I know a lot of the people that watch you and coached you and played with you, they're going to be cheering you on in Beijing, which is going to be super cool. The uniforms look amazing.
Yeah, they're really like nice. I picked it up. I was like, whoa.
When you get you got the Lululemon swag yet? Or when's that coming?
No. So we get that when we get there. I'm excited.
Okay. Wow. Do you know, like, how's the roommates work when you get to Beijing? Like, are you solo or you paired up with somebody? How's that work?
You have your own room, but I think we have like a common area between a group of us, but I don't know who the groups are. I don't know.
Yeah. Gotcha. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
JG, you got anything else for her?
Tons, man, but I know we're limited on time, or I don't know if we
Well,
are.
I'd love to have you back on after the Olympics, sometime after the Olympics, just to kind of debrief about the experience and so on. But there's going to be so many really exciting opportunities for you. And this is just the beginning. And again, I've always said, I don't know, when you played hockey for me, we didn't lose many games in the 3 years that you played for me. We had some pretty spectacular teams. And one of the things that I've said in multiple shows, to me, I could have lost with you guys, but we had such a great time as a team with such a great group of people. I got more out of that group than a lot of wins mean, right? So to me, it's more about the people and the relationships. I know you had some fantastic friends on that team that you're still friends with today. We had great leaders. I was actually looking at the old team photo, and when you were in grade 9 and 10, you had amazing leaders. Like, we had Sammy Patrick was a captain, Izzy Bilton was a captain, people that I've talked about on the show before, about just amazing leaders. And to me, your succession into that, wearing the C for us, was just an easy transition. But it's your ability to formulate relationships with the people around you. You kept things light when I was sometimes maybe spinning out, but like, you just had that effect on people. So this is really cool. We're all stoked for you. This is going to be an amazing month of February for you.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And yeah, the support I've had is like exceptional. I can't even begin to like talk about it because I'll get like emotional. It's so crazy how many people follow it that I don't know and have reached out. And yeah, I'm just very thankful from where I come from. And like you said, Nelson taught me how to have fun at hockey again. I was going through a time where it was tough to always take myself so seriously. So I always encourage people, like, you got to play high school sports. And I think that it made a difference for me in that sense.
Yeah. So now I remember. So what I'm going to say too is, you said at one point, I can't remember if it was after your sophomore year, where you came to realization that there is more to Emma than just Emma, the hockey player. And then you're finding your passion for what you were studying in school, your internships and your experiences as a coach. That to me is what you're going to do beyond hockey has such a huge impact. This is fun. It's exciting. The whole country gets behind the hockey teams at the Olympics. But what you're going to be doing long-term for a big portion of your life is really what the big difference is going to be, which is going to be really cool to watch too.
Yeah. And like, honestly, like, I think it's like really important for people to like realize that can change too. And like, even through this experience for me, like, I'm developing new passions, and like for example, advocating for the women's game. Like, I don't see why, if I'm on this team right now, I can't make a career out of hockey. I don't see why that's not a thing. And I think every young girl should think like that. And although I do have a backup, I wouldn't call it a backup plan, but other passions that I can pursue if that's what I choose to do, I think it's a choice rather than a not an opportunity kind of thing. And I want that to be a choice for every young girl. I think that I chose to pursue this academically. I chose to now be here through an athletic journey, but no matter what I choose, that's going to be my path. But I think both should be an opportunity. And I'm really looking forward to how I can help that transition come to life.
Very cool. Amazing.
Very well said.
Yeah. Emma, we like to give our listeners something to focus on between shows, call it homework. We're both teachers, right? So we want to make sure that people have a chance to have a takeaway from our show. What's been the greatest piece of leadership advice anybody's ever given to you?
The greatest leadership advice. I think just to work hard is like my biggest advice that like I saw paid off. I think like when you have someone that is the best at what they do, but they put so much into that, I think it inspires other people that they can be just as good at the same thing if they put enough into it. And I think that is the best advice that I can have for leadership, because no matter how good you are, if you really put effort into connecting with people and to bringing people together into what you do, your craft, then people are automatically going to follow.
Couldn't have said that better. That's basically sums up so much of what we're trying to convey to our listeners. It's about people. It's about trying to work hard and for the greater good. So service over status, right? Which is amazing. Amazing. Emma, it's been so great to have you on this show. I know we wanted to have you on here before you went off to the Olympics, but we're cheering for you. We can't wait to watch. I know Coach Miffer's coming over. We're going to have a viewing party here for some games and we're going to watch. But we appreciate you taking the time out of, I know you're training, you got to rest, you got to recoup, you got to do all that stuff, and you got to get back at it tomorrow morning. But thanks for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, that does it for this episode of Benchmarked. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Keep crushing it.